This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Particularly important this week. I always say it's an important show because it is. Because at Radio America, we tell the truth. I say it as it needs to be said. I don't worry about the consequence of what I'm saying, much like I don't worry about the consequence of what I do at Freedom Watch or in my private practice on behalf of clients and the American people. Someone has to do what is right. Someone has to put the interests of this country ahead of their own interests, just like our founding fathers did in the days leading up to 1776 and thereafter. And what I want to point out this week, and I'd like you to always listen to my daily podcast. I do a 7 to 10 minute podcast every single day. I talked about it last Friday. You can find it at radioamerica.com, at freedomwatchusa.org, at iTunes, at Patreon, at Spotify, on Facebook, Freedom Watch's Facebook page. I want you to really understand the dynamics of what goes on because, you know, there's been much criticism, which is well-deserved, more than criticism. I mean, it's just terrible. The left-wing fake news media. The president's right about that. I've been right about that. Others have been right about that. But we also have fake news right-wing media. And sometimes that fake news right-wing media talks out of both sides of its mouth, not knowing the facts. And that's what we're hearing this week with regard to this controversy over Roger Stone in terms of the prosecutors, some of which were Mueller prosecutors, asking for 7 to 9 years in prison. Clearly, that is an excessive amount. But that aside, and Stone was not even going to get 7 to 9 years from this very partisan, very leftist judge, Amy Berman Jackson, that presided upon his criminal prosecution and conviction. Prosecutors ask for more than what they hope to get. It's a negotiation, and the president knows that. You always ask for more. You don't ask for what you want because it's going to be cut back. But the misinformation campaign that is coming out of people like Sean Hannity, and I think unwittingly, not intentionally, by Rush Limbaugh, because he doesn't know. I think Rush is the greatest commentator in the history of radio. There's no question about it, and I pray for his health, and I'm sure you do. But he's wrong here, too. And I was listening to Mark Steyn yesterday. I mean, he's equally wrong. People don't know the facts. And Roger Stone, I've had a long experience with him, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. I met him many, many years ago. I was on the campaign finance committee of Jack Kemp. Stone was involved in that at his firm, Black Manafort and Stone, at the time, a lobbying firm that also helped people get elected. I was actually on that committee with Donald Trump and with others. And it went on from there. Stone later got into difficulty at the Republican convention where Bob Dole was nominated and Kemp was the vice presidential candidate. That was in San Diego in 1996. He was accused of attending a toga party, a swingers party, and I got the media off his back. They were camped in front of his house. I represented him. Later, he became, for a short period of time, my effective campaign manager when I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2003 and 2004 in my home state of Florida, which is where I am now. And this is something that people don't understand. I let him go. He let me go. I didn't want to work with him. He was actually two-timing me. He was representing Al Sharpton at the same time he was representing me. I'd asked him to stay exclusive. I told him no dirty tricks. You have to be ethical. I'm leaving Judicial Watch to run for the U.S. Senate, but I'm a person who believes in ethics and respect for the law, not necessarily the way it's administered by our government, but the way it should be administered. And that's what I do at Freedom Watch with our citizens' grand juries and hard-hitting cases. We're your Justice Department, as I've said many times. But Stone did stuff that wasn't right during that campaign. I won't get into it. And you can go read my book, Whores, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment. I wrote about it. You can still get it on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and elsewhere. And years later, I hope, frankly, that Stone would go away and leave me alone and leave my clients alone. But he didn't. Up came the Russian collusion investigation of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. And that investigation obviously was dishonest. It was a witch hunt. They went after various people to try to implicate the president in crimes with regard to Russian collusion and other matters. Some people deserved to be convicted in that process. Manafort clearly deserved to be convicted, and I'll tell you why Stone deserved to be convicted too, as well as some others. But the fact that that was a byproduct of a phony investigation does not absolve people from having committed crimes and having to pay the price for that. Nor is there any excuse that other people aren't being prosecuted. Yes, it is an outrage that James Comey's not been prosecuted, that Andrew McCabe, FBI director, deputy White House, deputy FBI director, Rod Rosenstein, the former deputy attorney general, Bruce Orr, the lovebird, Strzok and Page, the Obama intel czars who illegally surveilled hundreds of millions of Americans, and President Trump and his family and his colleagues, and yours truly, I might add, judges, Supreme Court justices. I mean, it's out of control. I got 2 preliminary injunctions against those agencies about 4 years ago, and they're still doing it. They don't abide by court orders. But in any event, the fact that some people aren't prosecuted does not excuse others from committing crimes. And this is at Freedom Watch what we're doing. It's Freudian slip when I say Judicial Watch, because this is what I used to do at Judicial Watch. They don't do that anymore. They just mainly get documents because Fitton's not a lawyer. But we're bringing hard-hitting cases and citizens' grand juries. And we're trying to do what our Justice Department won't do, even the score, equal justice. But let me tell you about Roger Stone. Roger Stone got caught up in the Russian collusion investigation, and he tried to lie his way out of it. He made false statements to Congress. He threatened a material witness, Randy Credico. He obstructed justice in other ways. He was required to produce documents which he hid and lied about, and he was convicted correctly. That is a correct conviction. Now, even in front of the leftist judge sitting on that case, Amy Berman Jackson, I sat there at the trial. I sat there for every single day. I listened to it. And the government had witnesses. They had documents. They convicted Stone in his own words. On the other side of the courtroom was Stone's defense lawyers, along with Stone. They didn't present one witness. Listen to that. Not one witness. Roger Stone, who's never shy about talking and bloviating, as Riley used to say on Fox, sat there silent, sometimes with his hands, between his head, sometimes looking up, frankly, twiddling his thumbs and looking concerned, but no defense. So you know what? It doesn't matter whether the jury's tainted or not. In fact, I know this judge is not going to set aside the trial because of a tainted jury. If in fact that's the case, everybody's politicized in Washington, D.C. It was the jury from hell, of course. And you have to ask yourself the question why Stone's lawyers didn't ask for a change of venue early on to a more neutral setting, and why they didn't present a much of a defense, if any. They didn't. It was basically just argument that they presented, no real evidence. So the bottom line is this, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to have Dr. CORSI, Jerome CORSI, my client, a brave American, on this show after this segment's concluded. He's going to tell you what went on with him and the special counsel. But I'm going to tell you the difference between Dr. Jerome CORSI and Roger Stone is that Dr. Jerome CORSI is an honest man. Dr. Jerome CORSI testified honestly when he was called in front of the special counsel. He was, of course, intimidated and coerced. They wanted him to lie under oath to implicate the president in Russian collusion and crimes. He said, I can't do that in front of my creator, and I won't do that. And you can take your proposed plea agreement, where I wouldn't have to do time, and stick it where the sun don't shine. That's what he told Mueller. He fought back. He sued Mueller. I did it for him. We filed criminal complaints at the Justice Department. They've gone nowhere, of course. They're sitting there because the Justice Department protects its own. And Mueller was working for the Department of Justice as special counsel. So were his prosecutors. But in the course of this entire sad story of the collusion investigation, Stone decided he was going to attack Jerry Corsi. He feared that Corsi might have some implicate him in crimes. Jerry never had that intent. And in fact, he never said a nasty word about Stone. But Stone, thinks that everybody's out to get him. And he thinks the only way he can do that is to destroy the other people. So he defamed Dr. Corsi. He defamed me. We brought lawsuits for that because Larry Klayman does not turn the other cheek. If you do that, you encourage more of it. And just this week, I've been in Florida deposing Roger Stone, where he cursed at me repeatedly, disrespectfully, called me all kinds of names, used the F word, called me a bitch, all kinds of different things. And this is the kind of person you're dealing with. And if he gets a new trial, he'll be convicted again, for sure. So what this is about is a misinformation campaign, which either he orchestrated or people around him as surrogates orchestrated, like Michael Caputo, that he's been unjustly convicted, that this wasn't fair. But he doesn't want a new trial because he'll have to defend himself again. And I suspect, again, little to no evidence will be provided. Now, you need to understand this because you're hearing a lot of misinformation from Sean Hannity, who doesn't know what he's talking about, and Rush, who doesn't know what he's talking about as much as I love him, and other people out there. And you're going to get the straight truth from me, because you can't have a justice system where people lie under oath and hide documents. And there has to be consequence. It does not mean there shouldn't be consequence for the Comeys, Clappers, Brennans, Obamas, and Clintons of the world, and we're doing that at Freedom Watch. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, see what we're doing. Go to larryclayman.com, see what I'm doing in my private capacity. I'll be right back with Dr. Jerome Corsi. And listen very carefully to what needs to be said, because you need to hear the truth. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org and share this radio show with all of your fellow patriots, friends, and colleagues. I'll be right back.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with my client, friend, and American patriot, Dr. Jerome Corsi. Before Dr. Corsi says his piece here, it's important what he has to say. I want to tee this up a little bit one more time. And that is that it's not okay that the Justice Department, if you want to call it that, it really isn't. And under Attorney General Bill Barr, it's a little better than it was under Sessions, that no one is being held accountable for anything. With regard to James Comey, with regard to Deputy FBI Director in the past, Andrew McCabe, with regard to the whole rest of the criminals out there, including Clapper, Brennan, Obamas, and the Clintons. That's not okay. And at Freedom Watch, we're holding them accountable. In fact, Dr. Corsi appeared before a citizens' grand jury last year, and we indicted Robert Mueller for obstruction of justice, violating rules on the Fourth Amendment not to engage in unreasonable searches and seizures, that is, surveillance on him and the American people, and other crimes. We're holding them accountable. But that does not absolve anyone from lying under oath to Congress, a court of law, or anywhere else, because if we're ever going to have a justice system that works, you can't permit that. We also can't have someone who intimidates witnesses. And Randy Credico was not the only witness that was tampered with by Roger Stone. Jerry Corsi was attempted to be tampered with because Dr. Corsi was a material witness in Stone's indictment. He was person number one. And Stone feared that Corsi would testify against him in some way, but Jerry never had any intention of doing that. All he said is, I'll tell the truth. And Jerry's the one who stood up to Mueller in the correct way and said, you're not going to get me to lie and implicate the president. I won't do that in front of my creator, and I won't do that as a matter of principle. And you can take your plea agreement where you say, if I'll testify on your behalf and I won't get any time, and you can shove it where the sun don't shine. And that's what Jerry did, and I was his lawyer. We also filed criminal complaints against Mueller at the Justice Department. Of course, they've gone nowhere because the Justice Department is compromised and corrupt, even under Barr. And we also filed a civil complaint for constitutional violations against Mueller. That's going through the courts. Jerry put his money where his mouth is. He didn't go out and attack other people and defame other people. And that's the line, because Stone, who thinks that he can bully people around, thinks that he can say anything he wants, and then he has a First Amendment right. Well, there's no First Amendment right to lie about people and to harm them and their reputation. And Dr. Corsi's been harmed. I've been harmed. I was defamed in the process. And consequently, we were forced to bring lawsuits against Stone, which we didn't want to have to do. And I was in Florida this week, as I said in the first segment, deposing Roger Stone. And I can tell you the lack of disrespect to the court system and to me and generally was unbelievable. First of all, he shows up 40 minutes late. His lawyer knew where, in fact, we were doing the deposition. So that's an unbelievable thing for someone in this position. And then he proceeded to use curse words with me, the F word, I was a bitch, I was this, I was that, on video. And that's not real smart. And this is exactly what we're dealing with right now. And Dr. Corsi is going to talk about in the next segment exactly why we brought those defamation cases. And he's going to explain how he participated in this Mueller grand jury in an honest and open way. And he has other issues he wants to discuss too. So I want you to listen to him carefully, because there's a stark contrast between someone like Roger Stone and someone like Dr. Jerome Corsi, someone who tells the truth, but someone who lies under oath. And as I said, Stone presented no witnesses at the trial. He had little to no evidence. It was basically just argument by his lawyers. And to the extent they have a problem with the jury, his lawyers didn't even move for change of venue. That's not going to fly. And he doesn't want a new trial. He doesn't want the judge, Jackson, to give him a new trial, get convicted again, and it'll cost more money. He wants a pardon from President Trump, and he will probably get that pardon in the end. But frankly, although I believe, as I believe Jerry does as well, that 7 to 9 years was too much, I think that Stone should do time. There has to be a price to pay. You can't behave like this, and it doesn't matter that other people weren't prosecuted, because we at Freedom Watch are going to prosecute them, and the Justice Department should be prosecuting them. But it comes as no surprise that our government is corrupt, and it comes as no surprise that our Department of Justice are a bunch of political hacks. And that goes for Barr, and it goes for Sessions before that. It went for Eric Holder. It went for Janet Reno. It went for Alberto Gonzalez. These guys are political hacks that run the Justice Department. We have to change the system. But the problem is that you still need to bring about justice for people that commit crimes. I'm going to be right back with Dr. Jerome Corsi. Listen carefully what he has to say. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's a brilliant man. He's been smeared. I've sued for him in a number of ways, and he is my friend, colleague, and a great American patriot. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with Dr. Jerome Corsi, who I call Jerry, as he's my friend. He's got a great wife, great family, great stepson. I've met him in the course of the Mueller investigations, and I've known Jerry for a very long time. Jerry, say your piece here with regard to Roger Stone and why you had to bring cases along with me for defamation.
Well, Larry, ask questions. We'll go back and forth in a dialogue. I won't tolerate anyone defaming me. And when Roger and also Alex Jones, when they defamed me, it was over the cliff for me. We sued them. Larry and I agreed. We filed suit, and I'm going to pursue those suits. Now, I don't hate Larry. I don't hate Larry. I don't hate Roger Stone. And I did react that I think this sentence of 9 years that these 2 Mueller prosecutors and the other 2 who joined them in prosecuting Roger. I know the Mueller prosecutors, and I think that they were politically motivated, and it's outrageous. President Trump is right. And what you said was right. We've got to have equal justice, and I'm deeply disturbed that Barr and Wray have done nothing but, Hillary Clinton can take a hammer to her hard drive and say, oh, she didn't intend to violate national security laws. Well, of course she did. Or that Wray has done nothing at all. Christopher Wray, head of the FBI, with this Andrew McCabe, who the Horowitz report said lied under oath and recommended him for criminal prosecution. What McCabe has is he got a book contract, and now he's on CNN making lots of money as a commentator. This is just not right. The left gets a pass on everything, and because we supported Donald Trump, you've got a Justice Department that will collude with your defense attorney like they did in General Flynn's case to sell Flynn down the river. Sidney Powell is demonstrating that in court. They will make up evidence and fabricate things for you to say that they're not true. And if you don't go along with them suborning perjury, this is the Mueller prosecutors, then they threaten, as they did me, to indict me at a crime before a jury in Washington, D.C., where I would go to prison for the rest of my life. And I would not stand before a federal judge and swear before God to a crime I didn't commit. I told them to take a hike. And, Larry, you defended me on that, and I was never indicted because we were right. The prosecutors were the criminals. I had done nothing wrong.
Well, and that's important, Jerry, because, you played it straight. You did tell the truth. See, in the end, the truth can win out if you have a strong lawyer, okay? And I must say I am a strong lawyer. I have to give myself some credit here because we didn't roll over. And the fact that you were not indicted, but that Roger Stone was indicted, is not a reason for Roger Stone to have tried to influence your testimony before he was indicted or thereafter, which he was trying to do with regard to you and Credico and others, by trying to intimidate you and smearing you, and we won't get into the particular smears, and me, your lawyer, was not the right thing to do. I myself agree that 7 to 9 years is too much, and I've said publicly that notwithstanding the fact that these prosecutors are corrupt, that prosecutors always ask, I was a prosecutor, for more than what you're going to get for a defendant. That's negotiation. The president understands that as well. That's the way he negotiates. He asks for more, and you get something less. But I do believe that Stone should do time. He should do anywhere, in my view, between 18 months and 2 years. There has to be a consequence to lying. And the fact that he presented no witnesses at the trial, I sat there. Everybody that was there, whether they were, conservatives, liberals, or in between, said, this guy didn't get effective assistance of counsel. Why is that? Because he had no evidence. He was convicted in his own words, in his own writings. And this is something that people need to understand. They're not getting the truth from either the Sean Hannitys, and I've said I love Rush, and he's the greatest conservative commentator that ever lived, and we pray for his health. But he doesn't have the facts either. And there's been a tremendous public relations campaign, but no one ever engaged in that for you except you and me. We stood up against it all, and we won. We fought the law, to use the term loosely, and we won. And that's the difference. Now, I also take offense. I want to get your views on this with regard to what President Trump's doing. He needs to do more than just tweet. It doesn't help. By challenging Judge Amy Berman Jackson, by challenging the jury, he is, in fact, most likely increasing what Roger's going to get as a sentence on February 20th. Because this judge is highly partisan. She's highly leftist. I've tangled with her before. I talked about that in the first segment. She's going to react. This is her authority. This is her bailiwick. She hates Trump. She hates Stone. She hates you. She hates me. She hates all conservatives. That's the way she is. She's the most political judge on a very politicized court in the District of Columbia. But I want to ask this question. Why is it that Trump is sticking his neck out for his friend Roger Stone, and in fact making it worse for him unless Trump ultimately intends to pardon him? But he doesn't raise a voice with regard to Cliven Bundy, his sons, and others. Now, Bundy is now continuing to be persecuted by his Justice Department under Bill Barr. A Obama appointee dismissed an indictment based on prosecutorial misconduct against the Bundys and the other defendants, and yet it was the Trump Justice Department that took an appeal and is causing Cliven Bundy a lot of emotional distress and loss of resources and uncertainty. in a case which is open and shut. And Barr sits there, twiddling his thumbs behind his desk, maybe eating, double cheeseburgers from pizza. And rather than doing his job, he's allowing this thing to occur. So that's an issue. But Jerry, tell us, your general thoughts. I've said mine about, the Mueller prosecutors and what happened with regard to General Flynn. That was an outrage too. Certainly it is. We need to correct our justice system. We have no justice system. So let it rip, Jerry, because, we're in a state of complete chaos, if not destruction, in this justice system.
Well, I think at least President Trump's tweets have brought light to this unequal justice. I mean, this Justice Department, I can tell you, and Larry, you can attest to it because you were there, that these are the prosecutors are criminal. They will fabricate evidence. In General Flynn's case, the prosecutors Brandon Van Grack fancies himself to be an expert in this FARA legislation, this Federal Foreign Agent Registration Act, and he's got a buddy over in Covington Burling, which is the law firm that represented a D.C. white shoe firm that represented Flynn. Flynn went to Covington because they were supposed to be the experts on FARA registration. It turns out, according to Sidney Powell, that Covington made the mistakes in the registration, and the Van Grack said either we're going to indict you or we're going to indict Flynn. And so the Covington and Van Grack together told Flynn his choice was to say he lied in the FARA information, which he did not do. The mistake was, I believe, Covington's mistake, and they covered it up and got Flynn to take the rap for it because the Justice Department said they were going to prosecute Flynn's son unless he took this plea deal. And Covington did not put that deal in writing, and they did not tell General Flynn that the initial 302 from his interview with Strzok and Panetka, there's two FBI agents right after the inauguration in the White House, they didn't think he was lying. The FBI they destroyed that 302, and they wrote another one fabricating evidence saying Flynn lied. I mean, the Department of Justice is criminal. And I'm for now, Larry, I'm at the point where I say, since J. Edgar Hoover collecting blackmail material on Martin Luther King and John Kennedy and everybody in Washington while he went out with his boyfriend, Clyde Tolson, and gambled in the organized crime gambling tracks out at racetracks out in California, and didn't have his gambling debts paid. He didn't have to pay any gambling debts. The FBI has, through the Church Committee in Watergate, when the FBI was investigating Martin Luther King again and anti-war groups, I think we should just send the entire Justice Department out to the Death Valley. It's the only way to get rid of these Obama legacies and Clinton legacies who hate anybody who's conservative or believes in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, as I do. And they're out to get us. And
well, not a bad idea, Senator.
They should level the building. Take the whole building and level it because it's corrupt and there's not going to be redeemed. And you put in somebody like Barr, he just becomes another cover-up agency. So move the entire Justice Department out of Washington and keep going. Don't stop there. Move all these departments out of Washington. And these employees who are Beltway, Georgetown will quit. It's the only way to get rid of them, or just shut it down altogether. If we're going to have political justice in America, we don't need a Justice Department or an FBI. They are the criminals, and I've experienced it firsthand.
You actually have an interesting suggestion. Maybe if we sent them all to Death Valley, the rattlesnakes would mete out justice. Who knows?
I don't know who's worse, the rattlesnakes or these criminal prosecutors. I mean, well, Larry, they take Manafort's case. They didn't have any Russian collusion. So without probable cause, they go and examine all of his tax records. I just went in. I got a computer expert, and we went in and looked at CORSINation.com. And I didn't know this until yesterday. The day after I refused to take their plea deal, the FBI started doing massive surveillance of my website. We can document that now. And I didn't know they were doing it until yesterday. But the proof is obvious, and they quit doing electronic surveillance on about the 17th of March 2019 when Barr shut down Mueller. but it's obvious they were looking for a crime. They were inventing a crime without probable cause. They wanted to get me so bad and put me in prison that if I did anything wrong that they could find in my life ever, they were going to indict me for it as long as it was within the statute of limitations. I'm sure they looked at my taxes, listened to my phone calls. They were out to get me. That's not justice in America. That's political vindictiveness by a group of ideologues who are leftists and don't belong in our justice system. That includes Judge, I'll use that word lightly in her regard, Amy Jackson Berman, who is another political ideologue who thinks it's okay to persecute anybody who believes in God or Donald Trump or the Constitution, because evidently she hates it. And who gave her authority as judge to enact unequal justice in a hall of American justice that she is disgracing every day by her presence there?
Well, you're right, Jerry. And, I do believe it's good for the president to speak out. It's good for him to say that federal judges wear their politics overwhelmingly on their sleeve. And that's the nice way to put it. Most of them are political hacks, either right or left. I've experienced that in my 42 years career. I'm filing more cases in state court these days because at least they're accountable to the people. They can be voted out of office. We need to change our system here. I think we should take away their lifetime immunity. Lifetime tenure and their immunity and make them accountable to the American people. But it doesn't absolve someone who, in the course of this investigation, lied under oath, intimidated witnesses, including you, and thought they could get away with it. So, yes, let's hold everybody accountable. That's the point that we have to make. And, now the Democrats are begging for Chief Justice John Roberts to intervene with Trump, to make a statement like he did when this Judge John Tiger enjoined Trump his immigration policy on asylum in the leftist U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. Trump criticized that, said it was an Obama judge. He did the right thing. And then Roberts comes back and says, we don't have Obama judges. We don't have Clinton judges. We don't have Bush judges. Who's he kidding? Why is he lying to the American people? We know there's prejudice. And in a D.C. Bar disciplinary committee that involved me, a frivolous case, we had somebody sit on the committee who was actually a communist, Michael Tiger, who's the father of John Tiger, an avowed proud communist who hates Trump, who just wrote a book, extolling the virtues of Marxism. I mean, you do have that in the system, and we need to clean it up, Jerry. We're going to be back on the third segment with the verdict section, but the American people owe you a great debt of gratitude because you're the only one who stood up. And as I said, you fought the law, and not the law, but the outlaws, and you won. We're going to be right back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Stay tuned. It's important to hear what we have to say.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now the verdict, fellow patriots, friends, colleagues, anyone who believes in the rule of law. And I think a lot of us in this country do believe in it, but we're not seeing it. We just talked about that. And we need to have, in my view, a constitutional convention. Jerry's going to be invited to come to that. A lot of conservatives say, we don't want to make some changes to the Constitution through amendments because we'll open it up and the lefties will make it even worse. But you know what? We don't have a Constitution now. It's not, in practice, we don't have a Constitution. And you can see it because all three branches of government are corrupt. You've got the courts, highly politicized judges, put it nicely. You've got Congress, who are a bunch of clowns. I mean, they're court jesters up there. That's all they are. They do nothing. Even the Republicans do nothing. Trump didn't need to go through an impeachment. If they had subpoenaed Lindsey Graham, another person who's in the closet, frankly, and scared that he's going to be revealed, if they had subpoenaed Hunter Biden and brought him in front of the Judiciary Committee, the Democrats would have run for the exits. And then you've got the judiciary and the executive branch. In the executive branch, you've got this deep state that is not loyal to the president, that's trying to destroy him. And I'm fearful now that they failed twice to remove him, what else they might do. And I've sounded the clarion call on that, Jerry. So I think that we need to make some changes. And I've said with the judiciary that our founding fathers were enlightened by God, but they're not God. And to give them life tenure gives them the power to do whatever they want without consequence. One of the last times a federal judge was impeached, Alice E. Hastings from Miami, which is where I'm from, my adoptive home. He got impeached for taking bribes and then ran for Congress and won. And he's been in Congress ever since. Perfect place for him, okay, taking bribes. So I want to get your thoughts on this, just generally speaking, because I want to bring together experts, intellectuals, people who are honest. And I think we need to make a few changes to change the way things work. And one of the things is our Justice Department, which obviously does not function anymore.
Well, I'll be happy to participate, Larry. I mean, first, we've got to have term limits on the bureaucracy. This whole, there's like 1.4 million at the peak under Obama bureaucrats, and in any given year, fewer than 5,000 were fired. These SES employees, I think first half of 2014, Obama fired none of them. These are legacy they stay on for decades. They're all Georgetown Beltway liberals, leftist globalists. They don't believe in the Constitution or God, and they don't represent middle America. This is part of where we need to get back to, Bernie Sanders, who is a communist, he's going to be the Democratic nominee right now, it looks like. This is a Democrat Socialist Party. They don't believe in the First Amendment. They don't believe in the Second Amendment or the Fourth Amendment. What they believe in is using the justice system to crush anyone who disagrees with them in their totalitarian state of their social justice ideas, which, are debatable. And I think their system never has worked. But that doesn't give them the right to be God, and that's the way they're acting. The constitutional principles were limited government. It's why I want to move the bureaucracy out of Washington altogether, to dramatically reduce it in size and to close down bureaus that we don't need. If I had my choice, I would close them all down and start over again. But the point is, the government we were given was limited government, as of the people, by the people, and for the people, not of the deep state, by the deep state, and for the deep state. And that's where we've gotten to be today.
And that's where we were in 1776 with King George III. We are in a revolutionary period. We've entered into the revolution. We hope to do it peacefully and legally. That's what we're doing at Freedom Watch and with brave people like you, Jerry, and with our supporters to take this show and share it far and wide. Education is important. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org. You can find it at radioamerica.com. It's broadcast over 50 stations throughout the United States on Sunday primarily. It's on Patreon. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. It's on Facebook. Get the word out. Listen to what Jerry has to say. Listen to what I have to say and other people that we have on our show, because you're not getting it on the mainstream conservative networks, as you may know. Fox is moving far left. You need to hear the truth from people like Dr. CORSI and yours truly. Thank you for listening to me. We'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman with other great guests, and we're going to have Jerry back again. Until then, God bless you, God bless your family, God bless the United States, and God save America. And thank you for listening to us.